Hello and welcome to the European Resilience Initiative Center video podcast. Today our guest is Anastasiia Ivantsova. She is Director of Communications at VoxUkraine. She worked years as an analyst and a fact-checker, and she specialized in analysis of propaganda and since recently added artificial intelligence to the focus of her studies. Welcome, Anastasiia.
Hello, and thank you for having me here.
My first question is about the role of the Russian propaganda in the full-scale invasion of Ukraine. We know that the Russian propaganda was massive and was focused not only on Ukraine but also on other countries in the West and worldwide. But could you explain what were the main directions of this propaganda and where was it spread?
So, from the beginning of full-scale invasion of Russia to Ukraine on February 24, 2022, our team, VoxCheck, it's our fact-checking team inside of VoxUkraine NGO, we started to look at Russian propaganda in 6 European countries. It's Germany, Italy, Poland, Czech Republic, Slovakia and Hungary. We started to look through the pro-Russian media, through small local media which were targeted to Russian communities inside those countries, and we found out 27 different propagandistic narratives that are spread in those countries. We know that the same narratives Russia uses for other countries in Europe, but I can tell only about the 6 countries because this is our specialized field. So we know about 27 different propagandistic narratives. Those 27 narratives could be described, could be sold to the public in 367 different fakes. For example, we have a propagandistic narrative that helping Ukraine harms Europe more than Russia. And this is like the whole narrative. But you can have different fakes. For example, how it harms Germany, how it harms Italy, how it harms Poland, or something like that. So each of the branches of the narrative, we call this fake. And each appearance of the fake, we call this case. And during the year and a half of our monitoring since the start of full-scale invasion, we found out more than 13,000 of those propagandistic cases in those 6 European countries.
Let me ask now a question because it sounds like a massive, like an avalanche of information. But could you elaborate a bit? Like what kind of statements, what kind of ideas are they, and who spread them? Do people who spread them, do they believe what they do? Or you mean like all these troll factories when we don't know if it is real people who stay behind these commenters?
So if we are speaking about people who are spreading this propaganda, it differs because, for example, some of the spreaders of this propaganda could be politicians during the elections. For example, how it happened in Slovakia during this year's Slovak parliamentary elections. And sometimes this could be like pro-Russian bloggers or pro-Russian journalists in different countries who are like citizens of the particular country, but they are spreading pro-Russian propaganda. What types of narratives could it be? So the most popular Russian narrative for now is the actions of Ukraine and of so-called Common West forced Russia to start the war. So this is like the most popular. We find almost 40 different fakes on these narratives in those 6 countries. The second most popular narrative is military biological laboratories in Ukraine and drug labs in Ukraine. So it's like the most cringe fake for me because it tells about like birds who spreading the diseases or flies who are spreading the diseases. Those fakes are really cringe, but they are effective because sometimes people believe them. And the third most popular are topics concerning historical events in Ukraine. For example, like Ukrainians historically are Russians, or Ukrainians historically wanted to be a part of Russia. So this part of narratives try to legitimize this full-scale invasion and the whole war of Russia against Ukraine due to some historical events.
Wow. Before we continue with the deep dive into the narratives of the Russian propaganda and all these biolabs, militarized, weaponized, flies, birds, rats, no idea, bats, don't forget to like, to share, to subscribe to this channel. If you have your ideas and your comments, leave them under this video, like write your comments, and don't forget to subscribe and to share this video. Anastasia, what you described regarding like why poor Russia was forced by the evil West to attack Ukraine, all these narratives, we could observe them from the very beginning of the full-scale invasion, and even before the full-scale invasion. Just remember all the talks about the NATO expansion. But have you observed the change or the development in these narratives during the last 1.5 years?
We haven't seen the development of those narratives, but we saw that some narratives got new fakes. For example, when we are talking about this drug labs or biological labs, when we are talking about them, Russia had like the set of the fakes they were spreading all the time. But since the beginnings of full-scale invasion, they invented like some more about rats, about flies, about birds, and they started to spread them on the top of the previous fakes. So it's like extensive, not intensive work in this fake field.
Okay, but frankly speaking, do many people believe in this? Because it looks like really weird. It looks like really crazy. I cannot imagine like any serious politician in Germany who would seriously believe this story of biolabs.
So, first of all, we need to understand that all the people are susceptible to propaganda. Even if we know how Russian propaganda works, even if we know its techniques or its ways to be in the information field, we still can't be fooled, because Russia tried to take by the amount of the fakes. They are bombarding you with the fakes, where they are selling you like 1,000 of different fakes, but 1,001st fake probably will work, because you are listening to those informations all the time. You are listening to like biolabs, and on the like 1,001st time you will believe this, because it will make you doubt in everything you believed previously.
But if we make one step further and look into other narratives, you have already described this story of like alleged economic harm to the Western economies or to the US because of the support for Ukraine. We know it's not true. We know that the US sends a tiny little bit of a percentage of its military budget to Ukraine. Even Germany, which sends pretty much of equipment compared it to a very limited German military budget, still sends a very small fragment of its military budget to Ukraine. And these narratives, they sound to be like more like realistic or more balanced. Is it the goal of the Russian propaganda to serve you some absolute crazy bullshit about the biolabs and gene-modified rats, and then say, okay, but we have like some balanced idea about why you should not support Ukraine, and this second idea would work? Do they act that way?
Yes, they act that way, and the main reason why do they act that way? Is because Russian propaganda has no aim to, for example, you believe this person and not believe this person. Russian propaganda main aim is you don't believe anyone. It's like the main goal. Russian propaganda's aim is chaos. Because when you don't believe like in your democratical institutions, when you don't believe your politicians, when you don't believe in free speech and free elections, it's easier to manipulate you because you are frightened.
Well, we know that within the last weeks and months, Russians tried to use artificial intelligence to spread deepfakes. How much did it work, and are they successful in this?
So deepfakes and AI technologies, for now, is a threat for us, but not as big as we could imagine like a year ago or 2 years ago. For example, some of pro-Russian Telegram channels in Ukraine started to share news with deepfakes, with AI-generate voice of Ukrainian politicians or Ukrainian soldiers. And for now, those tools are not perfect. You can still see how the lips are moving in the wrong direction when they're talking, or for example that you have no background sound if the people are talking at the streets. And you can still see that it is AI work, not a real video or not real audio. But still, AI is a big threat for us because, for example, it makes propagandistic work easier.
And you mean that in this video, you mean, I believe, the recent fake video of AI-generated Ukrainian commander-in-chief Zaluzhny, who allegedly called for a military mutiny against President Zelensky, which was visibly AI-generated, but still spread by many Russian Telegram channels.
Yes, this one of that, and another one, we had an AI video of Ukrainian parliamentary Stefanchuk. This video was about him presenting the new so-called law, because we have no such a law in Ukraine, about kids and teenagers who should be in army. So allegedly Stefanchuk on this video told that all the people should be in army, even children and teenagers, and will get such a law. But this wasn't true. It was AI generated sound, and it was added to the video, and it was clearly that this video is fake because his lips moved in the wrong direction, and we had no background sound of Verkhovna Rada, because in Ukraine, in Verkhovna Rada, people are shouting very much, and in this video we have no shouts, we have no like talking on the background, only speaking of Ruslan Stefanchuk on this video, and that's why we thought that this video is fake, and it was.
But please forgive me that I interrupt you again. You're talking about the details which are understandable and clearly visible for experts like you, like who work with propaganda topics and who have seen like thousands of fake videos and know what details you should analyze to reveal propaganda. But if we think about like an average internet user who is not that educated or not that experienced, or maybe just tired, we know that during the later Israel-Hamas war, a lot of AI-generated photos have been spread with incredible proofs that they are fake, like with people who have three legs, or like different number of fingers, like many fingers on their feet, or with absolutely distorted faces. Like the videos, these photos, they were clearly AI generated. Still, they have been spread with hundred thousands of shares and with thousands and thousands of likes. So people really don't care what they like.
So it's a big problem because we cannot fact check everything. And for example, our team VoxCheck are third-party fact checkers for Meta company, and we can claim the fake photos on the Facebook or on the Instagram platform, fake photos, fake videos, fake audios. We can claim them as fake or manipulative, and it would be less appeared in the feed of the people. But when we are trying to fact check everything, it's the wrong way, because AI generated fakes will be faster and stronger than people who are fact checking them. That's why, to my mind, we need to go two different directions. First of all, we need to make so-called pre-banking. For example, educate people how to detect fake, how to see if this AI generated or not AI generated. It's the first way. The second way is to train certain AI tools to detect this propaganda and make this work automatic. For example, in Ukraine we had a hackathon from VoxUkraine and a couple of Ukrainian IT companies. We had a hackathon how AI tools could help us to counter propaganda and detect propaganda automatically. And different teams from Ukraine and from all over the Europe tried to find out the recipe, the tool, how we can do this. And for now, I think it's our main challenge to find our tools to combat AI-generated propaganda with different AI tools, because we as humans will be never so fast and so active to fact-check, to counter, and to mark all the propagandistic takes we see on the internet.
Should it be something like a legal obligation by social media to analyze the uploaded pictures and videos and check if they are AI generated or not, and just mark a photo or a video is like it's an AI generated photo? So we don't say that it's bad that it's AI generated. You can generate art, you can generate everything, but at least the users should know that it is not a real photo.
Yes, I think it could be one of our decisions to make, and to mark generated by AI photos and videos and audios by social media. But we have one more threat by AI. It's text. Because social media and social media platforms can't determine which texts were made by the human and which text were made by the AI. For example, before this interview, I asked Google AI tool bot to make for me two different texts. One is why people should have vaccines, and the second one, why people shouldn't have vaccines. What threats we have in vaccination. And AI generated me the both texts, and it generated me the both texts in three different ways. So, for example, this way could be helpful for propagandists, for example, not to use their time to write 10 different sentences about why we shouldn't have vaccination from COVID-19 or from something like that. They could just ask AI to write them different sentences on this topic and use them with the bots in the comment section of different posts, videos or articles in the media. And this is a big threat, and that's why we can't determine which sentence was written by the real human and which sentence was written by AI.
So effectively it will be the case when you can start a discussion on on Twitter with a person, you believe a person, but effectively just waste your time arguing with a machine.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
What is the lesson we need to learn from that? Like, can one single country, like Ukraine or Germany, combat propaganda of a hostile nation, or should we somehow unify our efforts?
Propaganda don't need to lie to you to be good. Propaganda wants to use the truths, the truthful information without context or with the wrong context. And that's why propaganda is so good, it's so believable, because its main aim it's not to lie to you, it's make you to doubt, not to believe to anything. But if we are talking about countering the propaganda, and especially Russian propaganda, I think that in this case we need to unify Europe, Ukraine as I believe, a member of European Union in the future. We need to unify and work on this together. Because, for example, the main lesson Ukraine learned from the beginning of Russian war against Ukraine in 2014 is we need to cut all the Russian information field from us. And it could be different information fields, because different types of Russian propaganda target different people. And that's why we just need to cut everything, not to be threatened by it. For example, Russian propaganda uses healthcare fakes, and this scares Ukrainians because this affects them, their health, their children, their families, or something like that. And since we are cutting all the information, we need to cut Russian information about health topics too, because it could contain those Russian propagandistic narratives. And that's why I think Europe should cut all the ties with Russian information field too, because you will still have pro-Russian propagandists inside your country, but their voice will be not so effective if it wouldn't be helped by big Russian media from the Russia, from like state budget Russia.
Well, in Germany, I'm afraid we have enough of local actors who would gladly jump onto the Russian train, even without any support from the Russian media. We have recently a case of a Germany's star journalist, TV journalist, who received 600,000 euro from Moscow to promote his book with pro-Russian narratives, and he did it on German media, like not on Russian state media. But that is really an interesting approach when you say like we need to cut ties to Russia. In Ukraine, there was the case of social networks, Odnoklassniki and Vkontakte, the clones, Russian clones of Classmates and Facebook, which were absolutely infiltrated by the Russian propaganda, and many said under control of FSB. And when they were forbidden in Ukraine, and many people criticized it, saying that it's an attack on freedom of business or freedom of speech. But effectively, we see now that they were used as pure channels to spread the Russian propaganda. Do you think that we need some sort of a modification of our legislation allowing to prioritize security threats and security interests over the traditional rights to freedom of contract and other freedoms, when we clearly see that these freedoms are being misused and weaponized?
I think we can't call it freedom the process when somebody uses like his free speech, so-called, to share the fakes, the narratives, and the hostile information. That's why I think we need better legislation, not only in Ukraine but in Europe too, to filtrate all those narratives and all those propagandistic takes. Propaganda is strong and it could take different forms, and that's why we have no time in such a rush nowadays in the world. When we have war in Ukraine and when we have different elections through the Europe, we have no time to find out is this particular person making those pro-Russian takes because he loves Russia from the bottom of his heart, or because he getting money from Russia, or those two things combined. So I think that in these terms we need to cut the Russian information field and found out better legislation to do that, because I know that Russian voices are still very strong in Europe. Russian voices try to tell us that, for example, we need to stop the sanctions against Russia, because we see the usual people who do nothing in Russia, who don't invade Ukraine right now, and those people don't need sanctions. You need make sanctions only on the politicians or on the some other people in Russia, and this is, to my mind, is hostile information, because those narratives harm Europe and gives Russia more money to contain this war.
But what about other countries? We're talking a lot about Ukraine, about the EU, about the US, but what about the global world? We know that Russia is very active in the so-called global south, in the countries which are not that rich and often have the experience which is not that positive with the Western countries, and that's why they are pretty skeptical to the ideas which come from, for example, from the US or from the UK, because they have their colonial experience, and they try to find like other ways of getting information, and then boom, they find Russia today. What to do there?
Well, it's my personal struggle, because Ukraine, for example, didn't pay so much attention to so-called global south, to African countries, to countries in South America, and that's why we haven't our voice so strong there. And now we see that some of African countries are willing to support Russia, because they lived in the narrative that this is good country who saves them from the colonial countries, from the countries who some time ago tried to take them as slaves. That's why it's so hard for Ukraine right now to talk with those people, because they believed for dozens of years to Russian propaganda. They lived in this narrative, and it's really crazy for me how we didn't put so much attention to those countries. For me right now, I think that we need to make our voice stronger. We need to make news resources about Ukraine, about Europe, about impact on the world, on the languages that are spoken in those countries, and we need to spend a lot of resources to advertise them, to make them popular in those countries, because Russia Today and Sputnik and some other Russian media are still there, and people are listening to them, people are reading them. And also we have another threat from Russia is so-called cultural diplomacy. For example, we have a lot of cases when so-called Россотрудничество, it's a Russian state agency that tries to make cultural ties with other countries and present Russian culture, when those Россотрудничество agents was actually like FSB agents, or they tried to collect information from those countries. And that's why we need just start to make our voice stronger. It will be a long way, a really long way. Those decisions wouldn't be easy, and the results of those decisions wouldn't be quick, but I think that sometime from now, maybe in 10 years, maybe in 20 years, it will start right now. We'll have those people on our side, on the side of democratical institutions on the side of free speech and free elections and people dignity.
That is indeed a great goal, and Россотрудничество, this Russian state agency of creating cultural ties with other countries and effectively undermining the democracies, has also its office in Germany, despite the fact that the organization has been sanctioned by the European Union. They are still operational in Berlin, in the very center, in Friedrichstrasse. So a lot of work should be done, even in Germany, here in the heart of Europe, and of course we need Ukrainian ideas for that, because Ukraine is fighting against Russian propaganda since years. Thank you, Anastasiia, for this insightful interview. It was Anastasiia Ivantsova, who is Director of Communications at VoxUkraine. She is a former analyst and fact-checker with her particular interest for propaganda and artificial intelligence. Thank you so much, and see you again.